discussion motion on request, yeah.
And then you'll have comments on this.
I'll have comments prior to it, yeah. Brandon's gonna be late. He won't be here till 6:30. If you guys are okay with it, I figured I could go over the less significant stuff while Brandon's not here. The
less
ADU oversized structure. And then that'll only take like 10-15 minutes. Then we can talk about Bryce Clark's, if you guys have any comments on his.
Okay.
And then when he gets here about 6:30, we'll probably end a little before that even. But then at 6:30, you guys could go into Smith's with Brandon here as well.
Okay.
That way easier to help kind of navigate that one. I think the other two are easy.
Well, because we're only discussing the request that we know, not any of the details.
This is just a work meeting.
Hey, you just can recommend it.
Yeah, so, but Val, it's the second item on the action item, so the official meeting starts at 7. So we'll go through that, and then after that.
Tell that I'm just listening.
That's fine.
Because you can't do much till somebody else shows up.
Yeah.
Gene is going to be excused today. He had his father's
Funerals
funeral,
today,
so he's not. He probably won't be able to make it.
You better not come.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. We have to approve the minutes for 7/12. Was there anything you seen on that one? I didn't.
No, I didn't either.
The only one was the minutes for March 13th. I have a question on that one. Because on the back page, that was when we talked about the motion to approve, to revote. And nays carried, but down on the bottom it said motion passed, so it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
motion shouldn't have passed.
Because I erred.
Did not pass. That'd be the only change. Other than that, I think you can approve both of them. I think. That was the only thing that stood out to me.
So we have to ask Brandon, and you three will have to, you, Amanda, and Bryce will have to vote to approve those because I wasn't part of it, so I can't vote on Sheldon.
On the
Sheldon.
December.
one. And then with the change in the commission, I went back and forth with Brandon and on what qualifies as if we have 4 members of a quorum, is it 3 that passes? And he said it still has to be 4 out of the whole quorum when you're passing. So essentially, it's not a decision if we have only 4 who are voting. So kind of just clarifying how that breaks out, because that might be confuse some people in the audience where all 3 out of the 4 voted.
Sure. Gotcha.
Seems like that. Most conflict comes from not understanding
Blame it on me.
what rules are being followed.
Not, yeah.
that structure, is he putting the pool inside that structure?
Yep.
Inside?
Yep.
That's what I thought. And then there's something above it,
What do you mean above it?
like is there a second story above it?
I didn't notice the second story above it. There is a little connection room to that fitness room there. I didn't think I noticed above like mezzanine or loft area.
Oh, I thought this is just the connecting side structure.
Like so.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
thought
he's
that was-
connecting it to that existing building and closing it. Looks like Amanda's here. Do you guys want me to get started on my little
Yeah.
slide deal or my commentary, and then we can talk Bryce, and then we'll be ready for Brandon probably. So that's good. It's funny how it does that when you.
Hey, Amanda.
How you doing?
Good one? Good drink.
Make that a little bigger.
Yeah, that thing's waving at.
Good, enjoying the warmer weather finally.
Have some sunshine.
I don't know why that's being so goofy, but I'm gonna have to deal with it. Okay, I just wanted to go over. I was just telling Jace, Brandon won't be till 6:30, so if you guys are okay with it, I'll run over a little staff commentary. We're trying to do these more often, just to try and keep things current and updated, and then you guys we can look at Bryce's, and then then Brandon will be here. We can go through the Smiths. But since they hired me in August, Morgan, when I remember when she first brought me on, and Sherry's had a similar comment, and a few of the other staff, even Jared, have mentioned that a lot of what you guys do are oversized structures, right?
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, and again, I'm not taking a side here, right? It doesn't really matter to me if you guys want to keep seeing them all you can. It's simply some data so that you guys can make a decision and maybe update things as needed if you guys determine. So in 2023, you guys had 14 oversized structures. They averaged 3,021 square feet. You had 5 oversized plus ADUs that averaged 3,200 square feet. In 2024, you had 12 oversized structures, so you're getting one a month at least plus your ADUs, so let's call it 1.5 a month probably that you're building here. But the size went down in 2024. I don't know why, but that's just it was not significantly, but 2,500 square feet on oversized, and then your oversized plus ADUs, you had 4, and they were 2,124. People are honestly probably just building small islands because there's affordability. Then 2025 to date, you've had 3 oversized, and they've totaled, they're back closer to 2023, average of 3,000 square feet. So currently in our zone, we have R2, R75, and R1, and there's, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,600 for R2, 1,800 for R75, and 2,000 for R1. Those are your maxes. When I first looked into this, I wasn't overly persuaded one way or the other, but what really kind of helped me was I called some other cities, and there was kind of a unanimous one. I also got a hold of West Haven today. So Plain City, Far West, and West Haven all do it the same. They do 25% of rear yard. Plain City doesn't send anything ever to Planning Commission. It's always, if it's above 25% of rear yard, it's just a no. You can't do it. There's no oversized structure. There's no CUP. So it's as simple as that. Far West sends them to planning if they want to go over 25%, and then they send them to city council. So they recommendation approval type style. They say none of them ever don't get approved, so it's pretty similar to ours. There's not like a precedence for denying them really. West Point, theirs is different. I'm not sure they're a great sample city for us anymore. I'm not as familiar with West Point as you guys are living here, but they do a 1,500 max, and then they make you get a CUP.
Regardless of lot size.
That's the way they described it, yeah. West Haven was the exact same as Plain City. 25% max of rear yard and no planning, and no CUP option. So just to give a little perspective, and this is kind of rough, and again, hopefully just educational for all of us, some data. An R1, this is like a typical R1 I pulled. Here's an R2. But I kind of ran a 25% of an R1 and a 25% of an R2. This is a current shop. This isn't representative of that. But an R1, 25%, and this would be multiple shops likely. That includes multiple shops for 25%. If they can,
Cumulative.
Cumulative, yeah. They can't do more than 6,000 square feet of accessory structure in a rear yard. In an R2, they couldn't do more than roughly 2,300 square feet of accessory structure in a rear yard. So again, I'm not overly passionate about it. If we want to keep filling them the exact same way, that's up to you guys. But I do think the data was a little bit telling that we, compared to other cities and especially compared to our character and profile, I think that we are seeing more than we need to see because we've limited the size a little too much. I think 2,000 is too small, just based off our averages. And I have all the exact, but I think if we were to make a change, and I don't know, the 25%, I would have to wrap my mind around that a little more, and I'm sure you guys would too, just to make sure I understood all the intricacies of what that would look like as we did it. But even if we bumped our 3 upward, I think it would make it so you're not seeing as many, and not that that's the goal. I think you would just kind of put it to the point where you only saw the ones that were significant or could be problematic. I think the boilerplate commons could get handled here and probably reduce your guys' load by 30-40% or something. So those were some thoughts on that, but you guys want to...
So you said go back to the R1, it'd be like a 6,000 square foot structure. R2 would be a 2,300 square foot structure.
Yeah, based off those other 3 cities at their 25%. And yeah, right now we'd be limiting someone to 2,000, which I know we don't actually in practice. I mean, when I went through, there's been some good, I mean, Bryce Clark's is a prime example, right? It'll be, I think it was 4,000 the first time, and this will put it at 5,700 when he adds this onto it. So I know we don't actually limit them at 2,000. I just think that by not increasing it, you guys are opting to fill more applications, which is fine.
Sorry, so you're saying they could go up to 6,000 without needing a conditional use permit. Anything above that, they would.
He's just saying
Total.
25%.
Well, I mean, on an R1.
Yeah.
On an R1.
Roughly, yeah, that's kind of my
So-
depiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of giving people a little bit more freedom with what they can do. If, to me, it makes sense. I think the council's got to be the one to decide though, because they're the one that designates what the commission has jurisdiction over. I don't.
But they
off
don't,
the top of my
they
head,
never
so-
vote on our, I guess they do vote on our conditional uses, right?
No, the council doesn't,
They don't, do they?
but they tell us, they
But they
designate
would-
what the planning commission.
They would
can do.
demonstrate what the allowed size.
I suppose if
for
you
those
guys are
areas.
interested, though, we could just draft a change, an ordinance change for size strictly, or make it a percentage, whatever we think made sense, and then we could take it to city council for approval or not. But if you guys are interested in that, I can put more work in it. If you're not, we can just leave it how it is. So
I don't feel like for our workload, I don't feel like it's been a problem that we have so many that it's bogging us down. But I think for the citizens to not have to go through that process, you know,
Yeah.
it seems.
What's our
to me-
ordinance? Anything over 200?
Well, it depends on the zoning.
And the size, or the size of the lot.
So normally 2,000, like in an R1, if it was over 2,000 square feet, they would have to get a conditional use permit. Would it change, would you guys change anything on the height requirement too? Are you
No.
recommending that or?
no, I'm comfortable. I haven't had, in the whole time I've been here, I've never had one have much issue with making it under 25 feet. It's pretty good, and that's generous compared to the other cities. I think anything over that, they should probably come in.
Okay,
They're getting pretty tall.
what do you think?
I'm great with giving them more
You're
leeway.
saying right now it's 2,000?
For
For
1
1
acre,
acre.
yeah, they can go up to
Zone area.
2,000 before you got to
If
talk
you're
to
in
them here.
R2, it's up to 1,600, I think.
Yeah.
What's Bryce Clark in?
He's in an R1
So why would he
Oh,
come
he's on
in?
1 acre, that's right.
It's his is 1,700.
because he's tying it into an existing. It's
Oh,
attached.
he's not the setbacks and the,
Well, because his existing garage there in the back is 4,000, and this one's literally it's attached. It's not
he is
separate.
gonna attach it?
Yeah, it'll be attached. So if he separated them, he wouldn't have had to come. He could have just
Okay.
planted that one.
Well, and I called Malcolm because I was getting a little bit concerned about the impervious surface threshold that we have.
Yeah,
'Cause,
we do have
I mean,
that.
he's put in that massive shop and he's got his house and now he's got the pool house, but from what Malcolm was saying, I think we're about 10% away from.
Yeah, we had our building inspector do a check, and yeah, he put him. I could pull it up, but he put him at 55%.
I would almost go to that impervious surface guideline and something more along the 20, like if it fits in with all the setbacks. Seems like the lot size is gonna limit you on the size of structure you're gonna be able to build. Anyways, I don't see why we
Yeah.
have to come in to see us to say if the lot size allows it within the existing setbacks and has the drainage and things like that, then
Okay, would you have them still come in if they're gonna do electrical and
Yeah, and what about ADUs?
I think ADUs still need to come into us.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, but on the electrical, I don't think so.
You know,
I'm more on the side of if it fits within the zoning, I don't see why it needs to come to the ADUs, like if it fits if it's less than their current house size, like it's still gonna, the ADU's still gonna be restricted by how much impervious surface, the setbacks of their lot, they're just not gonna be able to build a monster ADU on there.
Well, they can't go over 960 square feet on an ADU, but I think it's important they come in because that helps us to meet our affordable housing, and I wanna have some, I wanna be able to engage that somehow. If they don't have to come into the city, they can just do it.
how do we
keep track
capture
of
that?
You know, how do we,
Well, that would be Morgan and Malcolm.
No, they still are coming in, the data's still there, right? It's just not coming in.
Yeah, Plains, I can't remember West Point. Plain City, they don't have ADUs come in. It's all, no planning, but Far West, they're
Do you guys
pretty,
feel like 900 is large enough? I feel like that's extremely small.
we tried to, they tried to increase it.
Yeah,
Riceville
last year.
Talks wanted it increased if it was over an acre. Like if you were an acre, I think you wanted 1,200 or something like that, and the council didn't go for it.
Just seems like there's enough regulation around that with the setbacks and the impervious, the drainage, like where that ADU has to be placed and things like that, that it restricts the size rather than us saying, oh, you have to be
960.
960.
Where would you put it? Would you put it to 1200?
Yeah, I'd do something like, I would lean more to just letting the lot size dictate what that size of structure
Well,
would be.
but
And-
then the
and-
argument is if you let it go too big, now it's not technically an ADU, it's a
If it's still
patio
small,
home.
it's still smaller than the existing dwelling.
I think it could be a slippery slope. I get what you're saying, because I think the lot size, I think that should make a difference. If you have an acre, then I think you should be able to put a little bit larger one on there.
Yeah.
I think if you live on a half acre, then 960, I've been to half acres that have those on there, and I think it could get pretty squished, especially I've heard of people putting additional ADUs, like more than one ADU. And from what I understand, like the legislature had some, I don't think it passed, but I think they were trying to make it so that down the road, those could be subdivided off and sold as separate.
Like 2,000
Property.
square foot property.
Yeah. So, I don't know, sometimes you just, I don't know. I think it's
I
something
think that's
to
down the
about.
road, but I think that's,
You know,
like, you can't be blind to that, but you just look at these other cities, you go into anywhere that's,
What
let's
if-
take Sunset, you have flag lots all over, and I bet they started out similar to us saying,
What if we do a happy medium and say, I like the idea of the oversized structure going with the square footage, but an AD, we'll still do ADUs, but let's let the other one stuff just roll through the city
Sure.
and split the difference. For
Yeah,
now,
the
let's,
city. It
let's
seemed like
keep
your guys.
tab
It
on
seemed like your guys' general consensus was keep ADUs. The city will look at drafting something that enables larger structures
Yeah.
to a reasonable extent, and anything beyond that will come to you. But we'll try and get a good share of them just to get processed here. Then you can talk ADUs over again.
So
Yeah.
let me ask a question, because maybe, I just want to make sure I understand. If somebody's going to build an ADU, you know, it's under the size, and it doesn't come to planning commission, they still have to come in and get a building permit, correct? And get the right permits for the plumbing and electrical and all that, so you could kind of chart it that way and keep track of it.
and
if
make
they're-
make
Yeah.
sure they're not putting it in the very back corner and they've still got their
That they're following
Yeah, we
The
could still
setback
still
thing.
do it. Yeah. Yeah, they'd still have to go through that process.
So would you go 25% of, or would you make it a square footage?
most all the other cities I looked at, like West Point, Clinton, Roy, they all kind of put a square footage on it. I'm just under the impression of like the property owner, the property should dictate what is allowed. And I think that could be based off of the others.
Yeah, of the four cities I sampled, 3 of them had a 25% of rear yard. That was pretty much the common one.
25% of rear yard.
For accessory structures. So you could have two, you know what I mean? You know,
I think it's definitely something to think
Yeah,
about.
I would like to look into it.
okay, I'll put some more thought together. I'll probably bug Jared a little and we'll get something put together that maybe is a little more enabling to the residents and then bring it back. You guys can fine tune it and then maybe we'll talk to city council about approving it. Okay, well go ahead, it's all yours now. That was all I had.
That's it?
That's it.
That's all the words of wisdom?
That's all I gotta do.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
As far as meetings, Amanda, did you have anything on the December 12th minutes that looked,
Yeah,
that needed to be amended?
just a couple things. I don't know, do we need to, sorry Jamie, do we need to make a note on there that Commissioner Greener wasn't present for the first two votes? He came late to that meeting, so I just didn't know if we needed to know that. Sometimes we'll say if somebody wasn't there or if they attended by Zoom, but I know he came later, so I didn't know if we needed to just note that, because his name's not listed on there, but it shows that he was in attendance.
This
so.
is the December one?
Yeah, this is from December 12th. And then, I don't know, this is just kind of a clerical thing, but everywhere in here that accessory dwelling is referenced, it says additional dwelling. And our code references them as accessory dwellings, so I didn't know if we should update that. Page 5, under item D, in the paragraph that starts with Commissioner Prince, midway through it says Matt Lowe and the city council had a discussion regarding the reasoning. That needs to be planning commission.
Yeah.
Top of page 6, I think it's plat map, not plot, because it was the plat map he was referencing. And then it shows you voted against that, but I didn't hear you vote against it. And I went back and listened to the recording. Did you vote no on that? And I just missed it? Or do you remember?
No, I voted to open it, so that would have been
That would have been nay.
nay.
Okay, I couldn't hear it on the recording.
No, and I think I clarified it before I left, huh?
Okay, alright. So I must have missed that, sorry.
I mumble a lot.
That's okay, I can't hear very good still. I have to watch stuff with the captions on. Okay. So those were the only changes I saw on there,
For the December 12th.
for December 12th.
And then I was telling these guys on the last month, you motion to approve the decision to revote for chair and vice chair, and it said motion passed. Well, the motion didn't pass because there was 4
Right.
nays, and that's the only thing I can see on the March 13th ones. Right?
That's it.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't catch that.
So with those changes, everything looks okay.
Yeah, as long as we state that in there.
And then action items on the conditional use permit for the oversized structure. I didn't,
Bryce's.
yeah, I didn't see anything glaring at me for
My
this.
only concern was the impervious surface, and it sounds like we're under that, so.
At the staff level, we were good with the structure being the fence. We're all good with that. 'Cause it's
Okay,
enclosed.
that's right, yeah.
We have a fence requirement.
Oh, for a
Right.
pool, right?
Yeah, but this one's enclosed, has bay doors, but
Do
something,
those bay doors lock?
something to talk with them about probably.
I guess that's the.
Cause yeah, on our
fencing,
fence
right?
requirement for pools, you have to have those latching ones that, you know, when you shut them, they just auto latch, so.
Yeah, so what's to say he just leaves the bay doors open, now he's, you know what I mean?
So is there not a fence currently around the property where it's at?
Not that I know of, no.
No.
You have to either fence the pool or you gotta fence the entire property. But he, at least, like I said, we talked about it at staff level, we all were pretty comfortable with the enclosed pool working.
So
I
where
guess really if you're, I mean, I haven't been in the pool, but if you're playing in the pool, your gates are gonna be open. No different than if he's in the pool, his bay doors are
Yeah,
just like you would a fence.
yeah, he's wanting
Okay.
the bay doors to shut them, you know, I think more often, all the time, cause you're getting,
Dust. And
Dust. yeah, so
I
you, I
wouldn't
think,
worry about the dust, I'd worry about the dang mosquitoes.
We don't have those here.
I was told they were mosquitoes, but I swear they're sparrows.
I'm fine with the structure action, that. I
Well, it
feel
says
like-
walled or fenced, right? So he's basically walling it, right?
basically.
The fence shall be constructed to limit any individual from accessing the pool area. All gates on said fences shall be self-closing and fitted with a self-latching device located on the interior side of the gate. That's my question, is if you've got these bay doors open, there's nothing latching, self-latching or anything like that.
Well, and then we,
I mean, you hear stories on the news all the time, families have parties, and even when the whole family's there, you know, a 2-year-old falls in. If you've got, maybe he's opening it up because it's a warm day and he wants to let the warm air and everything in, but nobody's out there. If there's nothing preventing some neighborhood kid or somebody, I mean, that could be an insurance liability
is he,
for him, but
that brings up a question. Well, and then F says if it's in an enclosed building, accessory dwelling rules apply.
That's kinda why we took that, you know, the way the ordinance
So
is
do we
written.
know where, is he on sewer over here on 55?
I don't know, I'd have to look.
I think so.
Dale, are you on sewer?
I'm
Dale?
sorry?
Are you on sewer?
Am I?
Yeah. So all of 55,
Mm-hmm.
so he's on sewer, so in his plan, does it show where his sewer lateral is compared to this building? Cause he's gotta be 3 feet away, right?
I didn't see that, but Nate will enforce it.
Okay. Okay.
that's something we should maybe just make sure he's aware of tonight, so it doesn't come as a surprise to him.
You can, yeah.
We say, hey, you're good to go, and he's not aware of it, then.
I would think he's not, but. And he's only doing electrical, he's not doing,
We don't have any plumbing listed.
well, if he's got a swimming pool, how can he not have any plumbing?
Right, that was my question with it.
That's a good question.
I mean,
Unless he's viewing plumbing as like bathrooms, flushing toilets, things like that. But if
He definitely don't have plumbing for a pool, but I
Yeah.
don't know if he has sewer. He might in that other building you guys approved a year or two ago. I don't know what that one had in.
what does his plan look like?
I think that part of it was unfinished, I can't remember.
It was an unfinished, oversized structure.
Mm-hmm.
So his building is this little 10-foot breezeway plus the 30 by 50, right? Is that where he comes up with 17? It's in the red,
Yeah, this one. That's his current one.
this little, yeah, and he,
That's a little breezeway.
yeah, he's adding that, that's where he gets
That's
his,
actually, yep,
that's where he gets his 1700.
yep.
Cause
You got it.
I was gonna say 50 by 30 is 1500, okay?
So, just going back to the fact that that is an open thing that does not have a latching gate on it. Are we okay with that?
I am, cause if it was mine, if I left the pool, I would be shutting the doors and locking everybody out, you know what I mean?
I think it accomplishes this. Well, whatever you guys think.
I think that, I don't know, I'm thinking about when I've had little kids, if I'm a neighbor, and, you know, they're over there having a party, and they go inside maybe to eat or take a break or whatever. My friend has a pool, we've swim, we go inside, we're not out there in the pool all the time. I just don't know that he's gonna shut those, I think there's a reason they said self-latching.
What do you see being more, the gates versus the closing the doors? Where do you think it's a bigger risk, I guess?
Well, I think the self-latching gate, to me, is kind of, like, that's a safety thing where it just automatically, it closes and it latches on its own.
But you gotta push it shut, right? Is that how we're understanding it? It's probably one of those.
Self-latching, I don't know. I guess.
I don't think there'd be gates that could do that. I think they'd be talking about those gates that swing and I don't know, maybe you guys have your own opinion. I don't know.
I guess anybody
think
could open their gate and just like leave it that way if they propped it open or something. I just feel like maybe it's a little bit more work to put down those bay doors. I would just feel bad if a kid wanders over there and there's nothing keeping them from getting in there because people get distracted. I just want to make sure we're thinking about that. I don't want to keep them from doing it. I just want to make sure we're taking that into consideration. So I don't want that on my. I just don't want to do anything that would be safe. Is all I'm saying.
I feel like it fits. Bay door, I agree with you that it might be harder to close, but
Brandon might be able to lend some perspective on that piece specifically.
Yeah, let's hear what you have to say, Brent.
step right into the.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this Bryce Park and the swimming pool that he has. The ordinance says, all gates on said fences shall be self-closing and fitted with a self-latching device located on the interior side of the gate. His is located inside of a building, right? But he has these bay doors that are gonna be open.
He can open them bay doors.
Do you think we have anything to worry about as far as
Let's see.
safety?
All gates on fences shall be self-closing and fitted with a self-latching device located on the interior side. I
Talks
guess I
about
don't
it being
understand as
walled
much
or
like what it is.
fenced.
we're
It is
talking about.
walled,
So his,
technically.
that building will have a pool inside of it,
Okay.
and those two bay doors he'll be able to open for air movement or whatever.
Is there fence around that building? And a fence, because
So the concern is when they're open, is it?
Right, there's
is
no
there
latching gate there.
There's no latching.
So
They're
if
not
the neighbor
they're
takes
not
or
there's not a fence around it.
And there's no fence if those things are open.
Although when I talked with him, he did say there was plans to fence around a good portion of the home, which I know you can either fence. I think it said fence the pool or the home entirely, right? He said so you could talk to him about his fencing plans long term, but there wasn't a plan. You know, what I mean? He's not going to put a fence around this building, but he might fence his home some more. I don't know, but he kind of said he was going to do some fencing. But
So I mean, you could talk to them about the fencing, like Malcolm says, because it says the swimming pool, over the entire property in which it is located shall be walled or fenced to a minimum height of 6 feet. So, I suppose if he has it fenced, it doesn't much matter if this thing's open if it's fenced. Trying to say, okay, we want to
yeah, if he fences the whole thing, he's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know if his plans are to do
But
that.
can we say, okay, we're gonna approve this with the condition that you put a
But-
fence around your property, or what, like what?
But when you say fence his whole property, so he's gonna fence the frontage of 5,500 and have a locking gate for his driveway?
No.
Well, when I think it says.
But I think as long as he's fenced around his
Just the
pool,
pool,
yeah, as
that's
long as
all
he
I-
fenced his
yeah.
backyard
That's up to
around
the-
the pool, and,
Yeah,
he fenced it in to like you can't get in.
yeah, and I
He
think you
could
gotta
do that.
fix.
I mean, I've seen others do that. They don't have, my neighbor does that, just the fence around the pool
Yeah,
itself.
because I think obviously what it's getting at is we want to make sure that the owner of any property, not just this one, can secure the pool, not have somebody come in unless they really try to come in.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
So obviously if you fence around the thing,
He sells bay doors for a living, so
yeah.
he might have some safety features on these bay doors. You can familiarize. I don't know. But you can, anyways, I didn't mean to throw that out there. Didn't get you off.
no.
no, I
But
think
it's something to consider per ordinance. That we were okay with it at staff level, but I wanted you guys to make the recommendation if you want to waive the fencing because it's enclosed or not. So just simmer on it, and then you can talk with him about it and make a decision.
My biggest issue is just the safety, just the kids that could wander in there with nothing to stop them. That's my biggest concern.
It is a little different, I guess, in functionality somewhat. So it's definitely worth exploring with him.
Any other questions or comments on that one? on to the rezone request for Terra Strata LLC. We requested you to send your questions over to Malcolm. Did you have any of those answered? That you can pull up?
Here. I don't know why this is being weird. It's not like to scale. Amanda may be able to summarize them for you guys just for the sake of, to talk about other items too, but these were some questions she sent and got some response on, so.
Basically, do you want me to just kind of summarize it since we don't have a ton of
Sure.
time? The cost of the sewer lift station, the estimate from JV in there was 2.33 million. So I wanted to find out if the full amount of the lift station was included in the CRA numbers that were presented. Because when the developer came in back in August, I had asked him, are you going to contribute to the cost of this lift station? He said, absolutely, anybody that hooks into it will contribute. The way this CRA and this analysis was done was with the CRA covering the full 3 million, up to 3 million. They said 2.3 to 3 million of that lift station. So that was one of the questions that I had. And I was just, some of these things, I was kind of confused because the cost estimates that they had for what the full-time and part-time employees were going to get paid, I think it was like an average of $24, $25 an hour or something. I was like, when I looked up, that just seemed really high to me, so I wasn't sure how they came up with that. The other thing is, of the 117 homes going in there, they estimated that there would maybe be around 15 students that would come from that. My sister alone has 8 kids and she lives in my subdivision, and I just thought that was not necessarily a realistic amount to think of how many students are going to come from this, and the amount that's going to be driving on our roads. If you think 2 people living per unit at least, or if they do have students that are driving or kids. I also was curious, on page 15 they reference the financial statements of Hooper City that they looked at to kind of come up with this. I was just curious what financial statements they used and what the multiple line item expenses were. Especially because I think, in listening to some of the budget meetings lately, there has been some questions on if those numbers are actually accurate. So I just want to make sure that they're looking off of actual data, like that the data that they're pulling is correct in order to speculate what the cost of some of these things as far as public works and stuff like that's going to be. And then page 32 talks about if we did a CRA, the breakdown on that, 10% of it shows that it goes to housing. So I think he kind of addressed it, that they're required to use that for affordable housing. But he also said in there it may be possible that the 10% could be used to support the sewer lift station project if we can demonstrate that the improvement supports affordable housing. So I wasn't quite sure how that worked. And I still am confused on that last, the tables that were on page 37. I don't know how to summarize that because I didn't quite understand clearly what the response was on that. But I don't know if I'm doing a good job summarizing it or not. You might want to just read it for yourself. But that's it.
There we go.
But,
I have
So
other.
one thing, I think the CRA is a good question of definitely a portion of that benefit is gonna go towards the CRA. And I guess I with our meeting about the PID, it felt like a PID would be a much better route than this CRA proposed portion because it removes the liability from the city having any
Sorry.
But aren't we only discussing the rezone request? We're not discussing CRAs, we're not discussing PIDs, we're not discussing.
I think it's
There's only-
comprehensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I
I
do.
think, I think there's I think this is just to open it to say, send it to city council and let's Taylor have the developer work with city council on what makes this project work for the city. And I think our portion of that is the recommendation to rezone that portion of the property, and I think we need to take into account all the possibilities, like Amanda was saying. Is it gonna be with a CRA? Do we want this with a PID that removes the financial risk of Hooper City? The developer initially is on hook for that, but he can go to the bond market and get that alleviated, and then the residents are very aware when they buy those properties of what happens there. So I think those questions need to be, and then also Amanda brought up the budget, which I think is also, I mean, the general plan, if you just look at the general plan, it felt like there was a lot of areas that this fit into that for me. And would benefit the public and would help us with some of our infrastructure needs. I don't think it's gonna solve everything, and I think it'll be a step in the right direction, and I think we'll still have to do some tax increases in the future to address those needs that were discussed in the budget
So,
meeting last week.
couple things. Because after the meeting, when Stephanie Russell came, I looked into those PIDs, and one of the articles I found, they kind of focused on Hurricane Utah because they've done those there, but they included some feedback from different states. Report card for PIDs in other states, C- at best. Problems reported at many levels: Texas, Arizona, Colorado, Florida. Residents losing homes, fights about disclosures, huge headache for states to manage. Backdoor corruption with PID boards, lenders double dipping, etc. Cities lose control of infrastructure rollout processes. Terrible problems and abuses in Colorado. Developers will build unless granted a PID. And I mean, it goes on. There's a whole list of concerns that these cities that have implemented these have. So I think if we look at that, we need to make sure that we understand exactly what that entails before we would move in that direction. And I can forward this to you if you want.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those can be addressed with the document that you draft between the developer and the actual city council, which would be the developer working with the city council and whoever is our expert in that area, because I'm not an expert in the PIDs. I understand
I'm not either. That's
what
the,
but I do think it's a tool that we need to explore to fund some of our infrastructure needs, that otherwise you're just gonna have a lift station up there that never gets built, and people aren't able to do anything with that land until that happens, so regardless of that. So I think we have to explore those options. I think we owe that to those property owners to help them have the
I
opportunity.
guess if you were to create a PID, you could put in, and there's a county in Texas, the application fee just to apply for a PID is $100,000, and that's supposed to take care of all the city staff's time to monitor it over the life of the bond. So I guess you can put those rules in place as you create a PID, right?
Yeah, I think that there's a variety of options that would have to be looked into. I don't think it would be anything you would want to rush into without fully researching it, but I think having the option on the table to look into how you might want to do it.
so
All right.
before we even move into that, like there's some concerns I have. I mentioned to Malcolm earlier today, but and I'm hoping you can help on this. We don't have an application to open the general plan, to amend the general plan. Then, I mean, that's what this is. We would have to amend the general plan in order to do this because our future land use map doesn't support what's being requested. So just like we did for Torgales, we would need to have that same type of application, and there's noticing requirements because this was just submitted as a rezone, and we can't do it as a rezone.
I think for me, I think yes. I mean, that's what it was submitted as. That's what it's on the agenda as, right? Rezone. So I think a couple of options. I mean, one is looking at the overall thing in general and just saying, okay, we recommend the following, right, related to this project. If it's going to happen, we would recommend there would have to be a general plan component. There would have to be this or that, and just kind of making an overall recommendation related to it.
So can we not, I mean, if the commission decided they wanted to recommend approval of this, would we just have to put the stipulation that you would have to come back and fill out an application to open the general plan?
Yeah, I think what you could do, for example, if you were going to recommend an approval, right, you could say, look, we looked at the whole thing in general, recommend an approval contingent upon any and all requirements being met. If we got to open a general plan, you got to come and do that, follow the process, whatever. But at least that recommendation then gets up to the council. They can make a final decision. At least the applicant knows then, okay, what do I got to do? And if they have to go and come back and open a general plan, great, whatever. But at least there's kind of an overall recommendation made.
I also think, Amanda, just briefly, I don't want to interject too much. It does seem like I understand, and staff isn't trying to claim this was done, early in July, and you guys hired me later, and it's not that I would have routed it out either. But we went this route with zoning ordinance amendments. Our ordinance seems to allow you to go through the rezone, and then if the proposed zoning differs from the future land use map, the planning commission will make a recommendation to city council. It still kind of allows you guys to make your recommendation, I think. But the recommendation includes, just as Brandon described,
Whether or not.
whether or not
we're gonna
open the general plan, and then we could address that with the
Then it
city
circles
council.
back and
And then,
And
it has to
then
come back
one
to the
last
rezone.
comment, again, I don't want to overstep this is your deals, but I like Blake's comment a lot, and I think there's some merit to considering that as you guys think through it. I don't know if we'll be able to tackle the CRA and the and however you guys want to handle it, but I think that that's something we will need to tackle. But I think that the developer's probably going to want to see some assurance of we're open to these zonings, right, or something like that, and then from there we could move forward with some mutual understanding that this zone will work, and then we could tackle some of those bigger items before they got there.
Yeah, I would have to see
Or
if
they
he's
got the-
even willing to explore a PID. Maybe he's not, or a CRA option if we go that route. Or, I mean, the future, from the general plan, the future land, that the PUD that he's proposing limits it to six, I think 6 houses per acre, or six lots per acre.
On that,
But that's like a seventh. We would just have, I would need answers from him that he's willing to meet that 7,000 square foot or whatever per acre lot size on that PUD portion. I would also like to see just match the abutting properties acres for acres, like the third acres that bumped up to there, and the half acres, I think he has half matching up to half, but then he has quarter acres matching up to third acres. I'd just like to see it similar around that.
in order to approve what he's submitted, we would have to have ordinance changes because he's asked for an R4 zone. If you go to 10-2B1, item E, high density residential R4 zone. R4 zones created by this paragraph will be allowed only if the property owned by one owner as of August 15th, 2013 directly abuts or adjoins property zoned as R4 as of August 15th, 2013. So R4 is a zone that's not even in our code anymore. If we wanted to approve that, it would go against what this ordinance says. So there would have to be an ordinance change, or maybe he mentioned in the last meeting he would be open to maybe doing third acre lots instead. So that's something that I think we need to address.
Yeah, R3 seemed to still be in play in our ordinances. But again, I think that further solidifies an interesting point that I think if you ask them to explore a reason or a ordinance change, we go through an ordinance change, but we're not open to, you get what I mean. We got to imply that we're open to a rezone at some point to explore that. So I don't know what comes first, but.
Well, and even with the PUD zone, like if you read our ordinance on that, I just think there's some things that we need to, I'm wondering if maybe what he's wanting is more of the patio zone designation than the PUD zone, because, I mean, both have stipulations in there that in our current ordinance, I don't think it would. Let me read you the one on the PUD since that's what he applied for. So a planned unit development must
Oh,
have,
sorry, Amanda, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's
They're all catching up with where we're at 10-2B. We just wanted to check that one real quick for
okay,
the.
10-2B,
You were talking the.
1,
It's up a little bit.
and it's on, item number E.
High density R4.
This guy here.
Next one down.
Yep, DC row number 2, that's what I was reading.
Thanks.
You're
Just
welcome.
want to make
No,
sure
you're good.
they got eyes on it.
Okay, so then if you wanna go,
Yeah,
Or I'll let you-
Right there, R4 zones created by this paragraph only allowed if the one owner as of 2013 directly abuts adjoining property that is zoned R4.
so then, if you wanna bring up, and I know we're short on time, we can talk about this in the meeting, but 10-2F-2.
Dude, it'd be faster just go.
Scroll down.
Gotta go back to,
Just over here. It's just down a little bit.
he's in 10.5 there.
You want to dial up?
Okay, so, couple
Plan.
places, item A, this chapter shall apply only to areas that have been master planned for high-density residential PUD and have been determined to be for the benefit and common good of the community. No additional property may be rezoned in the city using this zone unless the general plan is amended and additional areas of the community are designated to this land use, and it has been determined by the city council that this zone change is for the benefit and good of the community. Rezoning will only be considered if the infrastructure, water, sewer, streets, etc., for the requested rezoning location is deemed able or can be improved at the expense of the developer to accommodate the higher density. Down under D, a planned unit development must have a minimum of 5 acres with a minimum of 40% of the total acreage in open space, excluding roadways, buildings, and other infrastructure. Amenities that are available for common use, such as a community center, may be included in the open space calculation, excluding parking lots. So that portion that he's wanting to rezone to a PUD is 15 acres. So 40% would be around 6 acres. You take that off, you have 9 acres left. He's got 90 units in that space. That's not, in my thinking, unless I'm not doing the calculation right, I don't see how that would be possible with the way that our ordinance reads. The patio designation has a similar statement in there, it's almost identical, but it does give the possibility for an increased bonus density if they hit certain markers like moderate income housing, trails, an endowment fund. You have to check off 4 of them in order to get the bonus density, but that could be something that, you know, we could look at. I like the idea, if they're open to it, of doing like a 55 plus community where they would get some higher density. We would be able to provide homes for our senior citizens that need 1 level living, and they would be in walking distance to a store and a bank and different things like that. That way we're getting something out of it that I feel like could be beneficial to the community.
Where's the patio one?
It's 10 dash, let's see, it's 10-2E 1, and it specifically outlines in here.
3E1.
10-2E1,
Oh.
that a reason this zone exists is to allow a developer to more closely tailor a development project to a specific user group, such as retired persons. So I think I would like to hear if he's open to something like that.
We wanna
Such as
strictly-
retired persons, though, so not all only.
Scroll down.
Go down, it's under
Right
A, item A. But this also has the same, thing with the 40% in it. It's on 10-2E5. But if you go further down into the ordinance, it talks about bonus density, discretionary density bonuses, and the city council would have to approve it. But one of the things is moderate income housing with residential mixed-use development. So my thoughts are, you know, if you could put in smaller lots, so you get more homes in there, he gets more profit, but if they were actually affordable, if we could put them in that, have the criteria be that they're affordable homes for these retired people, I just think you're gonna get less crime in a situation like that, and it would be a real benefit to our people, and it would be in keeping with our general plan of trying to create places where people can stay and prefer when they get older.
that doesn't address like if people want their kids to move here. Like
It-
you're segmenting out that portion of the people.
Well,
Well, they'd have to go with the third acre or quarter acre.
But it doesn't have to be 55 plus. It just
So
says
I got-
as if or
But-
similar.
I just I would just like I like the idea of patio homes and I just wouldn't want to say well you're 54 sorry.
but that's the reality of it. I mean, there's a lot of places like that they do, and I think there's a need for them. And for me, I think that's a benefit, a big benefit. And I feel like the demographics of something like that and the way it would affect our community would be a positive thing. But we've only got 3 minutes before.
I guess Malcolm's point is at this point it feels like we're not approving them to do anything, but we're saying we're willing to we're willing to at least willing to explore the options and give city council a chance to work with them to
Right.
see how they can make it fit into the general plan.
I think you could make the recommendation contingent on looking at X, Y, Z. I mean, let's explore it.
Okay.
Any, I guess, are you good for where?
Yeah,
Or-
apparently, yeah. Apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I can remember it.
okay, hopefully you can.
I'd like to welcome you out to our River City Planning Commission meeting on April 10th, 2025. We'll begin our meeting by having Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Severink, that will lead us in that. And
Recording in progress.
And then Commissioner Whittison will offer a prayer for us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, I'm grateful we can meet together tonight as a planning commission and as a community. Grateful for all that we have. We're grateful for the country that we live in and the freedoms that we enjoy here. Grateful for those who serve to protect our country, and grateful for their families and the sacrifice that's made. Please bless them, and pray that we may have a good meeting tonight. Pray that we can have a good spirit here and help us to make good decisions for the benefit of the community and those who live here. We're grateful for all that we have. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Woodson and Commissioner Sebring for doing that for us. We have a few consent items that we need to discuss. First would be the approval of the minutes dated December 12th, 2024. Does anybody have any amendments that need to be made to those minutes?
Just the amendments that we made during the work meeting. Do you want me to go over those again, or did you get those? Okay.
I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes dated December 12th, 2024.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of December 12th, 2024.
A motion from Commissioner Sebring. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner Woodison. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the approval of minutes dated March 13th, 2025. Is there any questions or changes that need to be made on those minutes?
Just the last item on the vote. Well, we talked about that in our work meeting, so I think we're good.
I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes dated March 13th, 2025.
We'll make a motion to approve the planning commission minutes dated March 13th, 2025.
I have a motion from Commissioner Woodison to approve minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on to our action items for the day. First up is a conditional use permit request for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West. I'll turn some time over to staff for some comments.
Yeah, we got this application in and reviewed it. It was, as you can see, for 1,700 square feet. It's an addition, 19 feet 6 inches in height for a pool house, so it'll be an enclosed pool. I don't know why. It should give me a, there we go. That'll be the location there. It'll have a little connection area, and then it'll attach. No plumbing, and we have electricity, yes. Not used for business. Here's we checked all the setbacks. This being an enclosed pool, it goes with our accessory structure setbacks. It more than met those it would have met otherwise, I think, as well, even without the accessory structure setbacks. And those are everything. I did bring up a couple items in work meeting that you guys are aware of that you probably want to discuss with the applicant just to get clarification on, but other than that, it's everything that staff had.
Thank you. Now, is there a representative from the applicant that is here that would come forward? Please state your name.
I'm Bryce Clark.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clark?
I have a question.
What do you got?
So we discussed in our work meeting a little bit about what our ordinance reads as far as the fencing requirements for a pool. It's my understanding it's enclosed, but that there's some big bay doors that will be open. And I think the intent of the ordinance is just to make sure that this is not a safety issue. If your yard isn't fenced, isn't a neighbor, child, or somebody going to be able to wander in there and get into the pool? So can you kind of speak to what safety
For sure.
things you're going to put in place to
Yeah.
keep that from happening?
Originally, we weren't going to put the structure over the pool, and with the dust and mosquitoes, the bugs, and everything, we decided to. And so we relocated where we're going to put the pool, but I am putting a fence all the way around my structure, and so it will be in. I don't know if I'll have it totally enclosed because where I drive in, I want an automatic gate, and so I'm not sure how soon I'll have that in. But there is going to be a fence all the way around my whole property. As far as the garage doors that open, it's going to be just for use when we're in there to just kind of let the hot air in during the summer. So there was a few reasons why we're enclosing it. One, I already mentioned, the bugs and the mosquitoes. We also, realized that there's a lot of dust in Hooper with that. We love the field next to us and behind us and everything, but there is dust that kicks up, and we thought we're going to have a brown pool to swim in, and so that's another reason why we're enclosing it and putting garage doors on it, and so we can keep that enclosed. Another reason, a kind of a big reason, is so we can prolong our swimming season, and the energy efficiency inside when we're heating the pool was a big factor too, and so we decided to move forward and get that done as we do the pool. So.
Do you anticipate, or do you have an anticipated date or timeline as far as when that fence would go in to when the pool would be?
I'm working on the fence as the structure goes in. I'll have 3 sides all the way done, but the front fence, I want to do something different than chain link. And so I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
I hope to have it done by the end of the year, but I can't promise that.
Okay, just so you're aware of the concern there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
One of the main concerns too was safety. And when I have grandkids and kids over, my wife has a big family with a lot of little kids. We want to make sure that pool cover is secure and things, but putting the structure over the top of it, we'll be able to lock the garage doors down, lock the doors, and look like nobody will get in. And they can go out in the backyard and play on the swing set and things, and we won't have to worry about the pool or getting under the cover. It is a huge concern of mine too. So, yeah.
Great. One other thing, and you're fine with this right now from what the building inspector said, but we have an impervious surface ordinance, so you're getting a little bit close to that, just so you're aware if you decide to do something else.
I was embarrassed when he brought it up to me because I have an acre, and so that much concrete, and eventually I want to do asphalt, and so when he drew that up, he put the asphalt in even more than I'm going to be doing, and so I'll be just fine even when I'm all said and done. So it made me feel really good about that. So
great, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
This height 19.6, that's accurate. I know the rest of your stuff is pretty large.
yeah, I messed up last time, if you guys remember, and had to come back. I hope I got it. I think I overshot it on this one. I think I'm going to be just under 19 feet, but I put 19.6 to give it a little bit of play.
Did you get up to 25 without having to come back? So.
Yep. So I went to I just have preliminary plans, as you can see. Then I went down to the truss factory and kind of talked to them. And last time when I messed up, I didn't factor in my foundation sitting out of the ground a foot. And so I think I did on this one. But you know what? I'll see you next month if I didn't. So.
Bryce, you said that fence was on the north side. We'll go back on the east side, but it won't. You got that garage there that you'll enter in through. That's where it won't.
Yeah, we'll have a few entrances. I will have. I've got 3 windows in the basement part of that garage. The middle window is going to become a door, so I'll have access to inside the pool area from inside there. But I'll also have in addition to the garage doors, an entry door to get in as well, and out the back, so I can get out the back door or in the pasture area. But as far as fencing goes, yeah, there's a fence in on the east and the south, practically done. There's a couple odds and ends, and then I've got holes in on the north side and nothing in the front yet. Did that answer all your questions?
Anybody else? Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, we'll now open this up we'll enter a public hearing to receive a public comment. If you come forward, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to state your concerns or comment on this project.
Hi, I'm Kurt Campbell, 4904 South, 5500 West, and we're the neighbor. We have a prescriptive irrigation easement the entire north side of his property, and I took a measurement today from my side of the fence, and the easement is just over 18 feet. So, and my whole concern is it going to encroach on the irrigation ditch that's pre-existing and we got an easement for it.
Staff, did they consider that easement when he came in before?
Looks like they've got it at 18 feet from that property line.
Okay.
And that's where his building is running 18 feet.
The very edge of his building, yeah, will run along the 18-foot mark.
So it's right to the easement.
Looks like that, yeah, I think so.
Now, on those plans I put, am I not supposed to talk here? Okay. On those plans I did put 20 feet because that's, I quickly needed to do it. It's actually about 21 feet from the structure, and I'm 19 inches from the easement line on the closest. The easement, I've got a copy of that. It kind of goes on an angle, and so that's what I had to, I wanted the structure to be actually a little bit bigger, believe it or not. But with the easement there, I backed it off to 30 foot. Where I wanted to stretch it out is that 10-foot mark in between the units. I wanted to go to 12 feet, but I would be encroaching on the easement, and so I pulled it back to 10 feet. So we've got 19 inches to play with. And as far as an easement go, it is not a property line, it's an easement. I can be right on that line. Property line, I know I have to be off, but I'm about 21 feet from the property line to the structure, and that leaves me about 19 inches to the easement line.
My issue is with the equipment going over the piped ditch. It was engineered to have 12 inches of dirt over top, and it's at grade as of since it was finished. So, if he crushes the pipe with the equipment, well, then.
So if he damages it, then I would assume he's responsible to fix it, right?
Well, that's what I'm clarifying.
Well, and I don't know that this body
Yeah,
necessarily gets
yeah.
involved with that kind of stuff. I mean, what I think we would want to be cognizant of and careful of is we're not approving something that's going on top of the easement. It doesn't look like we are, but it would be just like anything else, property right-wise. If something's damaged or has an issue related to it, it would be a civil dispute between the two of them.
Well, and that's what I want to clarify now. We spent years in court over this deal. I would like to get something from today so we don't have to go through that all again.
I guess I'm not understanding what you're asking them to do.
Well, so if the equipment that they bring in crushes the pipe, I shouldn't be held responsible to take him to court to get him to fix it, should I?
I would think that you would be actually responsible to enforce your own property rights.
So
So this body is restricted on what it can do, right? So it's being asked to consider a conditional use permit for an oversized building. That's the limit of what this body can do.
Sure.
They can approve that, they can deny that, but that's it.
Okay.
As far as enforcing your property rights, you have every right to do that, but it just goes beyond the ability of this body to do anything else.
Okay, thank you.
That is actually one of the reasons I have not paved in front, because the big equipment coming around the other side, I was concerned about that pipe as well. I don't want big tractor-looking excavating equipment and concrete trucks and things like that going over that ditch. So I'll have little tractors and maybe skid steers and things like that that can, it's a concrete pipe, it can definitely handle that, but I was concerned about the bigger equipment, so.
And I'm assuming that would be an insurance issue with your excavators if they damage it and all that, like Brandon said, that's not like a city.
Yeah, I'm getting the same excavator that actually did my whole house and did the ditch as well. So he's full aware of what's in there, so.
Yeah.
And as far as the easement line, I did have my engineer come and string that out because it's like, it's not straight. And so I strung it and then marked it all out. I'm off of it, so that's not a concern.
I guess the flip side of what I said earlier, I'll say now, and that is approving this does not give you any right beyond what you would normally have when you're building and not saying, because we're giving you a conditional use permit to do this, you have something, as far as property rights beyond what you already would have, meaning we're not giving you the authority to utilize some piece of equipment versus some other piece of equipment. I mean, it's your discretion on what we do.
Oh, for
At
sure.
your risk as far as whether you damage something or not. We're not giving you any kind of pass on anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I know what the easement is, and it is on my property, and it's an easement, and so I can't build over the top of it. And if I damage anything, of course, I'm held responsible for what's under there. And so I'm full aware of that, and that's not a problem.
Just want to make clear on both sides, we're not taking a side.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'll now close the public hearing and proceed back to the radio meeting. I'll now return to the Planning Commission for discussion and a motion on this conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West.
I think that's good.
I agree.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for his oversized structure of 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Greener to approve the conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Go for it, Liz. You got it.
Second from Commissioner Woodison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to our next action item is a rezone request for Terra Strata LLC located approximately at 5500 South, 4700 West. The request is for rezoning of a property from low-density residential to commercial C2 and a residential mixed-use plan unit residential. I will turn some time over now to staff for a presentation.
Staff doesn't have much in terms of comments, just a couple items. I think that there was a productive work meeting regarding this one, and staff has, been agreeing and talking. This is a commercial development that's new to staff as well, so we're kind of fielding this application the best we can. I do think an important note in the discussions I've had with the developer that we'll need to execute a development agreement and some type of developer's agreement. I think that can take place as part of their rezone and something that we can consider in light. I think that could mitigate some of the, we can build that out with the help of city council. But the other thing here that we just kind of wanted to reiterate is we'd hope that Planning Commission can have a productive conversation and help identify the type of zoning that will be recommended to city council, if any, which apply, what applies in our general plan or what you guys may want to request be maybe recommend be approved or opening of our general plan. So really not a ton of comments from staff, just that, we're hoping to be able to move this one in a productive manner, and I think that, we'll definitely have some opportunity to build out some development agreements to orchestrate, the construction and the look and aesthetics and appeal of the development, so.
Thank you, Malcolm. Now I'll bring this back to, first, is there an applicant from Terra Strata that can come forward and answer questions and kind of explain your application here?
Yes, Brett Wallen with AWA, representing Terra Strata and the rezone request. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm going to hand you out some summaries, if I could. Just some background. I'm 67. I turned 67 this year. When I was 29, I was the city manager for Woods Cross City. community that was kind of going through some of the same challenges you have. And the reason I kind of reference that is just really, as I read through the vision of the community and the general plan, I think it's pretty clear. I think maybe there's some inconsistencies over time with maybe making some changes with the ordinances and so forth that are a little bit inconsistent with the general plan. As I've reviewed it, our application meets the intent of the general plan. LRB did the fiscal analyst for the city. The Terra Strata's paid for that document. They concurred that as well. They've indicated that it's a net positive fiscal impact. I actually was prepared to go through some of the highlights of this. I'm not sure how productive that is. I mean, I'm glad to do it if you want me to. But I think as I look at this project, this is a significant project for the community. I know when I was at Woods Cross City, those types of projects were significant. And as we took on those types of projects, the community flourished and had funding and opportunities to make a difference in their community, in their citizens' lives. I will say that just in general, that Stuart Adams is running a little bit behind with one of the functions that he was attending. He will be here shortly. But we've had significant discussions relating to this. We're very open if the commission is interested in recommending us to the city council. We're very open to working on a development agreement. I think that's typically the best way to solve for some of those inconsistencies between the general plan and the ordinances, is to work through it that way. But we're open to work through it however you guys deem that we need to work through it. We are very anxious to put this rezone in place so that we can start working on the project. Really, I'll stand for questions unless you'd like me to go through some of these highlights. It's all, the document that I provided is all out of your general plan. It's just some narratives that have come out of comments out of the general plan. So if that's helpful. The other thing I will say is there's some information in here on affordable housing. I think probably if you go in about 7 or 8 pages in, maybe a little further, it looks like this sheet here. And I don't know if you can see that from there, but it kind of goes through some affordable housing calculations. And I would say the calculations we have for a home price of $413,000 with a 65% loan, meaning the homeowner would need to put 35% down payment, which is about $145,000. The total monthly costs for that are $2,416 a month. And the calculation above, is looked at what's affordable based on median income, and that was affordable, okay? But as you get bigger lots and more expense, the affordability component diminishes. So I think that was really one of the highlights as far as the residential side goes. Really, I'd stand for questions if that would be the most productive time.
Yeah, I actually think the questions will be, but thank you for the document, and I think it's good information to have to see how this project could help fulfill the general plan's goals. And so I'll now turn some time to the commission to ask some questions that I have for you.
Can you restate what that purchase price was on that affordable housing number that you came up with, the 65% LTV?
Yeah, it's the actual home price or the affordability?
Well, I know you mentioned it was a $400 and something thousand number.
413.
Is it? Oh, it's on the next page. I was on the.
Sorry.
Keep going. Okay.
It's that top one.
Okay, got it.
That's green there.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I had that written down. I didn't know that far in.
And I will say in today's market, that is a huge challenge. I mean, affordability in housing is at the state level, everywhere, every community we go into is having the same challenges. How do we make affordable housing affordable?
So I have a couple of questions. In the PUD section on the map, what is your intent for that? I've heard patio homes, I've heard condos and townhomes. I'm just curious what the intent is.
We really haven't planned on any condominiums. We would be open to some townhomes if the city doesn't want townhomes. We're willing to not do townhomes. I think that's where the development agreement can really be helpful, is to define that. Patio homes has been discussed, and I think initially when we started working with city was actually some time ago, and staff's turned over since then, but I think staff had actually had some lot layouts and some ideas they had, and that's kind of where we started and kind of worked our way back to where we are at this point in time. But I think two things of significance. One is if we look at tax increment and an RDA or a CRA, the number of lots become important to be able to fund the lift station. And I think that's outlined in the LRB study, probably better than what we can do. They're indicating a $2 to $3 million expense. Looks like there were a couple bids in there. I think the lower one was just under $2 million. I think when we look at the general plan, and it's indicating a variety of residential opportunities to serve your citizens, we see that as really important and want to provide a mix of units where we can. And we're willing to work with the city to get that done.
So you had applied for a PUD zoning in that area.
Yes.
And if you look in our ordinances, we have a patio designation and then we have a PUD. And I'm wondering if the patio designation might fit better with what you're doing. One of the thoughts that I had, let me just read this to you. There's some density restrictions that currently, the way our ordinance reads, you have to have 40% of the overall zoning area that is considered open space. And it doesn't include roadways or anything like that. And
for the PUD?
For the PUD zone.
Okay.
And so if you take, that's around 15 acres, and if I'm calculating it correctly, 40% would be 6 acres, so then that would leave you 9 acres. And I think you have around 90 units that you were wanting to put in that zone. So in the patio designation, it gives the option for some discernible bonus density. I think that it's up to the city council, but there's things that you can do so that you can increase that density in there. One of them is moderate income housing, if you bring that in mind. So I'm just curious if the commission recommended that you do this as a patio zone and put in some patio homes, and it says in our ordinance that one of the distinctions of that is to help retired people. Would that be something you would be open to if it fell into that moderate income housing like what I don't know if this will qualify for that because they have to have a 65% loan to value, it sounds like. But as far as on that home price, if that would tick that box on moderate income housing, would that be something that you would be willing to consider?
Yes, I think in speaking with Stuart, he's very willing to consider those elements. I think some of the challenge is when we've talked about it in the past, age restricting, like I know you discussed that earlier. We want to make sure that there is inventory for those retiring people, but to age restrict it across the board would kind of work against trying to provide other opportunities for other income levels and age groups. And so trying to figure out exactly how to work around that. To to your point, I think one thing that could be done to meet the code would be to consider it all as a PUD with different size lots. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So the half acre and third acres lots could all be part of a PUD as well. So we're very, very willing to work with you and try to come up with the right solution and the thing that's going to fit best and really be able to generate the income required to solve the infrastructure needs of Hooper City.
So you mentioned third acre and half acre. Right now you've got quarter acre and half, and our zoning doesn't currently allow for any more quarter acre lots unless they abut quarter acre lots, an R4 zone that's already in place. When Mr. Adams was here before, he mentioned that you guys might be open to doing third acre instead of quarter acre. Is that something you would?
That's the discussion, yes. I think when I read the plan, and that's where the general plan seems to indicate a vision, and then the ordinance seemed to be tweaked at some point. It sounds like it's not, the word "not in use" is where some of those inconsistencies maybe have arrived. And it seems like what's maybe happened is modifying the ordinances to try to solve a zoning issue. And so I think that's where a development agreement can really be helpful in trying to clear up those issues.
Yeah, I think that particular ordinance relating to the R4 zone was in place before we recently redid our general plan. So that may be why there could be some discrepancy, but yeah, because this goes back clear, it references August 15th, 2013, and it states that R4 zones created by this paragraph will be allowed only if the property owned by one owner as of August 15th, 2013 directly abuts and joins property zoned in R4 as of August 15th, 2013. So I'm assuming that's around when that happened. And we redid our general plan like 2020 to 2021, and we're working on it. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I know the study that LRB did contained a CRA, but would Terra Strata be willing to pursue like a PID if that benefited to fund that lift station requirement?
Yeah, I think they're willing to consider it. I don't know the answer to it, so I don't know that I can speak as we haven't done significant research on it to see financially how that would work out. It doesn't really work out, but we're willing to explore it.
Thank you. And then I know in the application there's some open space. Would you consider building a rec building or something that would mirror the feel of Hooper City, kind of like we have over here in Green Acres with the silo recreation building, that with pickleball court, and a building that could be rented out? Would you be willing to put something like that in your?
Yeah, and not knowing exactly what I'm committing to it, that's a hard.
And I'm not trying to.
And especially where it's not my money. But that's a little easier actually.
I think it goes more to being able to use some of the open space or some amenities for the planned development. You know what I mean? We had anticipated if it was a PUD and that we were, as we've proposed this, that we would have PUD type amenities, which typically would include either a small park or some type of amenities in that shape and fashion.
Thank you.
If the city does approve this, would we have any input on the other types of businesses that you're putting in? I know at one time they were trying to get some feedback on, if somebody wants a Chick-fil-A or somebody wants something like that. Is that something that is still on the table, or do you already have people lined up?
We have not. We don't have anyone lined up. It's premature at this point to have any lined up. I know that Terra Strata, and there are certain businesses that like to chase this type of development around, so they know if there's a Smith's Marketplace going in, they want to be first on the list. And we have people that are on that list, but we've made no commitments, and Stuart has indicated at our last meetings that if you have specific businesses you would like us to target, that we will go after those businesses. We can't commit that we can 100% get those done, but we will make that effort and try to make that financially feasible.
So McDonald's is listed on the plan that we received. Is that for sure? Or
No.
we already just, okay.
No,
Good.
so let me tell you, I have a little Vietnamese guy that helps me with all my plans, and he's amazing. But sometimes he forgets to take the names off, so those are placeholders that they put on. And I think the latest ones we sent, we took those off, so we apologize. But we have none. What I can tell you is that the International Shopping Center Convention is scheduled in May. If we knew that we had something going forward, we could start working on those entities that could participate in this project, and we would love their help.
I have another question about the CRA. From the numbers that I've looked at, I'm not a big fan of the CRA. If it is something that ends up going through, my understanding is that the developer can go out, obtain the funds to do those improvements, whether you can do a bond or something like that, and then that money is paid back to you over the duration of the CRA. Is that your understanding? I want to make sure that if that happens, the city is not on the line for that.
When I was working for Woods Cross City, I was also the redevelopment director. Small cities, you do a lot of different things, right? Actually really enjoyed it. And the redevelopment agency is a unique tool. I really do like what they have at their disposal to be able to solve issues like what you're dealing with currently. The RDA Act is the way I call it, CRA, has evolved over time, and it's changed, and it cycles up and down. Right now, it's in a pretty good place. The opportunities are, one, the city could go out and bond for it, and the tax increment could be repaid that way, or the agreement could be that the developer would actually go get the funding and make that happen, and then he would, basically, I call it a rebate. That's probably the easiest way. He's paying, the project's paying the taxes, and those are rebated back until they're paid off for the commitment that's made between the developer and the city. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah, it does.
And I personally, I prefer that to a PID, but I think it could be a combination of the two. It could be a lot of different things, and I think exploring those would be interesting.
Yeah, from the little bit of research that I've done, I don't care for either, but I prefer the CRA over the PID as well. But
yeah, I mean the PIDs are really pretty new. We've been involved with a couple of them, and really hasn't been enough time to really see how they play out. But the RDA's got a lot of history, and they've been very successful.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
thank you.
That'll bring us back to Planning Commission for discussion.
So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the LRB fiscal impact analysis. We didn't get an opportunity to really discuss this as a commission or ask questions of the firm that did it. So I'm hoping we can kind of go through and just talk about some of the concerns or questions that we have, things we liked, things we didn't like. One of the, I guess the main things to me that stood out is, when we had the meeting back in August, we were given kind of an estimate, and obviously it wasn't, can't hold them to it be an exact thing because we didn't have the fiscal impact analysis at the time. But we were told to estimate close to $500,000 a year in revenue. And the result of this fiscal impact analysis on page 4, you go off of the net present value. This is over the duration of 25 years. To Hooper City, $4,328,299, which ends up being $173,131 a year. That's best case when you consider that's having us do a CRA where Hooper's obligation is only the small, minuscule property tax that we receive out of that area. When Weber County came in last year, and also when LRB's representative was here, they mentioned that it was probable that Hooper would be asked to contribute more so that we have more skin in the game. When you look at what the state and what the other entities, Weber County, the school district, what they're being asked to contribute to this, chances are high that we would need to put in more, which would mean our sales tax revenue and possibly our municipal energy tax, both of those were mentioned. So if you go to the very last page of the study, the first year that this project would go in, based on these estimates, without Hooper having to contribute more than what they've already put in there for that small amount of property tax, we would lose $10,375 the first year. We would lose an additional $33,644 the second year. We would lose $56,875 the third year, for a total of $100,894 loss the first 3 years. Starting in the fourth year, we would generate around $269,657, and it would stay close to that until we got to 2038. My concern is how much more these other entities, like the school district, the fire district, if they decide they are not going to participate. I had asked LRB if Hooper's portion would go up, and they said that that is a possibility. One of the other things that I have a concern about is the estimate in there for the lift station from JUV is like $2.3 to $3 million. I asked LRB if that entire thing was included in these numbers as far as the CRA, and they said that it was, which means that the public, the taxpayer dollars, would be funding 100% of this lift station. And we have other developers who have developed in Hooper who don't have by any means the money available to them that this developer has, who have had to put in a lift station on their own dime. I don't feel that it's fair for Hooper City and these other districts, other entities, to pay for that lift station when this hasn't been done for others. And I realize there is a financial benefit to having this project go in, but it's not the benefit that was presented to us. $173,000 is not that much money, and there's a risk because we will be in the negative the first several years. We will not be receiving that income. So what do we do? In our last budget meeting, it was presented that we've got, problems with our sewer, problems with public works. I think it's a risk for us to go further into debt by doing something like a CRA. If we're not involved in doing a CRA, then I feel like this could possibly be something that would be more of a benefit. Especially, I know some of us have talked here and there, the fact that I think right now Hooper has a city council, and I would say the majority of the council and commission really care about honoring that general plan and keeping Hooper rural. But we do have expenses, and we need some sort of revenue. I think we need to be really careful the decision we make, because if we turn away something like this because we feel like we want to stick to that 3/4 acre lot and we hold out for that, what happens a couple of years down the road when we may have other city council people in, we may have other commissioners in who don't care at all, and we'll fill it up with apartments. And so I think that we have to really take into consideration the positives and the negatives of this. And I think that there's definitely some pluses. I mentioned the idea if we had something in there like a retirement community where I know that there's a lot of older people that have lived in Hooper and they want to stay living in Hooper, but they can't do stairs, and so maybe they get a one-level home on one of these smaller lots so that the developer gets more profit. There's a little bit higher density, but the demographics of that community would be where, you know, people in that stage of life generally live there the rest of their lives. There's lower crime. They would be within walking distance or driving distance to a grocery store and a gas station. I can see the benefit, the appeal of that. I also think it's important, you know, we had someone from the Ombudsman's office come and talk to us about training, and he focused a lot. I printed out transcript of what he said, but he focused a lot on the general plan and how important that is. It's the guiding document of your city. Your ordinances, your zoning should all be in line with that general plan. And he specifically said if you're going to change it, it needs to be in line with what the majority of the citizens want. I don't know for sure how people feel. We really wanted to try and get a lot of feedback. I know, you know, we have the one public hearing, and if you go off of that, you know, we had a lot of comments. I went through and typed them up. There were 17 that showed up that were against it, plus they brought in 63 signatures. So 80 people against based on this one meeting. 8 for, 3 were property owners, and 1 was a non-resident. And then there were 4 comments that were either neutral or they approved of the Smiths, but they didn't want the higher density housing. And I think that it's important. We've had a lot of people express that they want us to respect that general plan. They want us to uphold it. But I also think we have to be realistic and look down the road and see what costs are facing us and what could happen if we don't make a decision when we have some control and some say in what happens. So those are some of my thoughts.
Any other comments?
Well, most of the concerns I've had from the beginning is that I feel like if we approve this, we need to have some sort of contingency on it for make sure the Smiths and the commercial goes in. I don't want to have this housing go in high density, or give up the high density housing to get the commercial. So I don't want to have the housing go in and then have you say, the economy, you know, maybe down the road we'll add the commercial. I feel like we need to have some sort of stipulation or something that.
But wouldn't that come in the developer's agreement? Because
Yeah, I'm just saying that's something I feel like we should list in our recommendation today to have it on record.
I agree. One thing I forgot to mention, if you look at the top of page, actually it's the top of page 10, I think. It talks about how this supports an increase in population growth for Hooper to about 14,000 residents in 2030. We are currently around 9,400, I think, from the numbers that I pulled up. That's a 50% increase in our population. So you take into account that we have Kent's and Winco and Weidiger's, and now we're going to have 2 Walmarts and a Smith's in West Point. Albertsons and Macy's were on 1800. They didn't have the business to sustain them, and they went out of business. So one of my concerns is if we have 14,000 people as our projected population, is that reasonable? And what's going to happen if we put this in and it's not generating the tax revenue? Then is there going to be more of a push where you need to build more houses? And residential is never going to bring in money. It's going to be a bigger drain on our city. So maybe that's something else that we need to take into consideration. Another reason why I really like the idea of the retirement community, I don't think they're going to be driving, I don't think they're going to be putting as much wear and tear on our roads as what a different demographic would. And so just one other thing I wanted to mention.
well, I think it's important too, if we can get on top of this, because we all know West Davis corridor is coming regardless. And so
hard because we're gonna have a way to get on there. 5,500 and 4,000 is what they projected, at least unless things have changed.
Well, when that comes through Hoopers, we know it will no longer exist.
I think it depends. I think it depends on if we give them a reason to.
That road's gonna come through and we're gonna become, well, yeah, those of us that live west of 59 will be west of the tracks, if you will, versus east of the tracks. That scares me more than anything else, is that road, so.
I know when they put in place the municipal energy tax, Councilmember Hill had suggested doing a property tax instead, which I know nobody wants to hear that. But I've thought about, this is significantly going to change. Hooper, it will. There's no question. But if we were to, I'm just curious. I've had people say I would rather pay an extra $100 a year on my property taxes than have something like this go in and change, everything around. Like it's not going to be Hooper anymore.
But even at $100 more, you're still only raising the $100,000 that you said was insignificant in the other.
It's like 250,000, I think, if you go off with household.
How many houses?
But like,
There's around 2,500, but not all of them are probably property owners. And so all I'm saying is I want to make sure that
I agree, there's pros and cons to everything you do, but I think what Blake said is true. That road's coming and Hooper is changing. We have a limited amount of time to get in front of this. We're in a severe budget crunch. And if we don't, we're going to be stuck with, if we go bankrupt, with Weber County making our decisions on what they're going to allow and what they're going to build. So I do think we have to be forward-looking and have to have some trade-offs that we're willing to do. As I reviewed the proposal that they submitted and compared it to the general plan, I think it fits a lot of the mixed-use residential that they have. We mock at the $100,000 that on the low end that on this best case scenario, but the fact of the matter, we don't have a main street and we don't have businesses. A mom and pop shop isn't going to be able to buy land in Hooper and build their restaurant and make it because the land cost is just too high. Or they would have done it already. So I think there's an opportunity for a large anchor store that brings with it, I think, more chance of success for those additional retail partners that they can enhance and bring that success. Without that anchor, I think those smaller retail businesses are more likely to fail on their own than with that anchor. So I think I agree with your points as like the LRB study, it's hard to put together numbers and say this is what it's going to be and what that's their best guess. But I don't think we can mock it like, oh, this is $100,000. I think the fact of the matter is we need to try to get as much retail quality growth that we can get, and we're probably going to have to do the tax increase as well to meet our needs. I think that's the reality. So I don't think we can just turn down like good proposals and not even give city council an opportunity to go and meet and try to work out something that would make sense for the city and sense for the developers and sense for the residents. I think that's our duty to give that opportunity to the city council and the residents of Hooper to go through that process and see if it meets any of those needs, because the reality is the budget is tight and it's only going to get tighter.
I agree. I agree with you in regard that an anchor store, I think, is going to help those smaller businesses to flourish more and to possibly last longer. But having said that, I'm just not convinced that putting more commercial in is not going to just result in us having more cost down the road. And I think you can look at other cities around us and what happens when an anchor store like this goes in. The entire thing does fill up with commercial. And the balance is that what we want for Hooper, if you truly look at the sentiment expressed in our general plan, I mean, there's a strong desire for wanting to keep it rural, right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a sentiment, like you mentioned the sentiment, that's important. Without even giving them an opportunity to go to city council, they don't even have a chance to say, hey, this is how we want to make this match the city plan. This is, look, we want to do this with we want to have these type of businesses, just like I said, they can't guarantee it, but at least they will try to keep that rural city. The fact of the matter is everybody wants it rural, but we have people coming in here every week to city council complaining that my neighbor's doing this. People move to the country because they don't want anybody to know what they're doing. But that's not Hooper anymore. It's changing. And I think we have a limited amount of time with the budget to make decisions that can hopefully put our city in a position that we're able to guide these development decisions rather than just be backseat accepting what somebody else might be pushing down the pipe with our land use decisions.
Well, and I don't think I'm not advocating that we just flat out deny this. I recommend a denial, it's not our place to deny it. But I think if we make a recommendation, it needs to be done wisely. And I think we need to put in the suggestions that will help to safeguard what we have as much as possible. I think that the CRA, everything I've seen on this, I do not think that that's a good idea. I don't feel like Hooper or the other districts involved should be footing the bill for that when other developers who have not had the means that this developer have done that. And to me, the financial benefit, we're losing that. If we do a CRA, we could be losing it even more than what's in the study if Hooper is asked to contribute even more. And I just don't see that as being a feasible option for us.
Yeah, I think the other developments.
The other developments, I don't think brought a large commercial opportunity with them when they have footed their infrastructure bill either. I think that's the balancing act. I get your point of we don't want to treat people differently, but they have a portion of this development is different because it brings that commercial in.
Show me the benefits. When we're talking 173,000, and this is not just Smith's, it's the entire project, and that's with us only contributing a small amount to the CRA. What if that amount increases and we're not getting hardly anything, but we've changed our whole? I think we have to plan worst case, right? We have to take that into
What if they
consideration.
do a PID? What I'm saying is you can't just say the study's there and it says it would be fiscally impactful. What businesses came here and said we're going to give the city $100,000?
Who's giving us $100,000?
What commercial development has come to say, hey, I want to develop commercially here, and the city's going to benefit $100,000 in the past 4 years?
I thought the trade-off is they're getting higher density housing. Why would we have to get high density housing plus lose money for the first 4 years?
Right. Okay, so yeah, the trade-off is that is a trade-off, right? Like you give them higher density housing to bring this development into place, right? But you're arguing the fact of we can't deny that we're in a budget crisis in Hooper, that we have more infrastructure projects that we can meet in the next 10 years, even with this project. So my question is, on the trade-off, is what commercial businesses come to Hooper that's going to generate $100,000 in revenue? Because we'll go off this number because that's the study that we have.
Well, I would say we've talked about this highway coming through. If this particular developer feels like this is a good place, I think there's a lot of others that probably feel like it's a good place too. My thing is, if we've got all of these grocery stores, why do we need another grocery store when maybe there's some other ideas? I realize this is what's on the table, and that's why I mentioned earlier, if we pass on this now and hold out, we could just have a situation where the whole thing fills up with apartments. I went to the town hall of our representative last year, and they talked about how the goal is to start focusing higher density housing near access to transportation. So the writing's on the wall. There's a lot of open space on this corridor, and it could fill up with apartments, and I don't think any of us want that. So I think, yeah, this is something that we need to look at. I'm just saying if we do it, I'm not in favor of doing the CRA. That wipes out the benefit that it's bringing to us in the first place. I think that other developers have had to foot the bill for the lift station. It's not just this developer that will be tying into this. There are several in that area that will tie into it as well, and I think that cost could be shared. When we had the meeting back in August, I had asked Mr. Adams if he would be willing to contribute to that lift station, and he said absolutely, anybody that ties into it should be contributing. So I feel that if we make a recommendation for approval, we should include in that we do not participate in a CRA. And that the higher density housing aspect of this, the only way I would be in favor of something like that would be if it was a retirement type community that would be a benefit to our city and to our older residents.
Whether it's,
Okay.
Those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, right, I agree with you that I think if you pass on this now, it might be detrimental down the future. How the process gets done, I just don't want to handicap the city council in any way saying, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, but go ahead and try to get the development done. I would want them to be able to make the best decision that they feel, and they're the people they represent, as they're the elected officials, to be able to make that decision, whether they want the CRA, they want a PID, what best benefits the city. I feel like that should be their decision, not based off of our I mean, we're making the recommendation for the land use change, not necessarily on what fits, because I'm not an expert in the CRA, and it very well could fail, or cost the city money. I acknowledge that, but based on the study, the numbers that we have, it benefits the city, and it says that maybe our portion is better. I just don't want to handicap based on a recommendation to say, hey, you have to do it this way with one arm tied behind your back.
Well, the city council ultimately will make that decision. So this is just a recommendation based on the research that we've hopefully done as a body and what we feel like would be in the city's best interest. But ultimately, we are just a recommending body. We don't get to say. I just think that there's certain parameters if we recommend an approval that need to be put in place. And I agree with Sheldon that the anchor store needs to be done first before the residential. I think that safeguards the city. I think that I already mentioned about the CRA. There's a couple of other things, and I've got to collect my thoughts. I've got notes that I've written here, but things that I think need to be taken into consideration if we move forward with this. And truthfully, I don't know how we can make a recommendation to approve. I think we can table based on the fact that our ordinances currently don't support what they're wanting, unless, I don't know a way around that. We generally haven't sent stuff up to the council unless it's...
I think what our ordinance says is what Malcolm mentioned in the work meeting. I think it contemplates that the zoning request potentially goes outside what the general plan allows, then you are allowed to make a recommendation that the city council consider that, right? I mean, obviously the applicant is saying, no, we feel like it fits within the rezone, it already fits within the general plan. Either way, whether you feel like it does or doesn't, I think you can make whatever recommendation. If you make a recommendation on it to move it forward, you could say, take a look at that, make the decision. If you feel like, because that's right in our ordinance, says you can say, hey, if you feel like it needs the general plan to be looked at, do it. You can do that in this meeting. You don't have to have them come back and make that application separately. I mean, so I think you can cover a lot of those contingencies with the recommendation that you make, and at the same time, not, prohibit them from looking at all options. I think you could say something like, okay, we recommend approval based on looking at the following things. Hey, take a look at this CRA and how that impacts, and take a closer look at the housing, take a look at, that's what they want, right, is recommendations.
Sure.
And then ultimately they're going to make the decision.
So even if the zone that they have requested is not currently in use in our code, we don't have it in our code anymore, we could say we recommend approval with the stipulation that they have to be in line with what our ordinances are.
Sure, and so then the city council can take a look at that, and if they need to change an ordinance, they can change an ordinance.
Any other comment from the commission?
was curious on planning commission's thoughts if you did a patio home. It talked about, you know, it could restrict it to certain demographics like 55+ communities. What's your guys' feeling on other potential uses of patio development? Would you all kind of really like to see a 55+ community?
I don't know, in my opinion, I don't know if I'd restrict it to 55. We already have one of those. We also have approved a ton of AUDs that are basically a small patio home, if you will, and they're not restricted in age, you know what I mean? I just think if you do this bring this up to the city council, we try everything we can to get affordable, you know. There was a deal in the legislature, Governor Cox talked about when he had $200 million, he wanted to build X amount of homes. Can we get the price point? I think the biggest thing is, can we get the price point where it needs to be so that more people can get in a house? I mean, that's my thought.
I would prefer to see, you know, like quarter acre and half acre or third acre, whatever they're doing, do it all 55 and over. I'd be on board with that.
In the PUD?
The entire thing.
The whole thing. Okay, all of the rest of the ground that's not part of the Smiths.
I wouldn't want to see it restricted if they wanted to do it all patio, all in the PUD. I'm okay with that. I like the matching up. I think it kind of insulates the project around it a little bit, insulates those houses butting up against it, those people that are coming and buying those lots around the edges, they know exactly what they're getting, where they're buying. I don't think I'm just on I like less rules and I don't like restrictions, and I don't think that's my place, so I would prefer a non-restricted patio home community.
I think the demographics of having the entire thing be for a patio home, 55 and older community. Again, I think you're going to have less traffic. I think you're going to have less crime. I think you're going to have those surrounding neighbors. I would think they would welcome that type of a community. If we go ahead and do this and we change the general plan, I think there has to be some compromise, and I think we have to take into consideration the people that live around there too, not just around there, in all of Hooper. And I think this is something that was expressed, you know, that I think there's a need for it. Yes, you know, Blake mentioned we already have one of those communities, but I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in this for their parents, for themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, in that, on the patio home zone and the PUD zone, both, it talks about that 40% of the zoning area that has to be open space. But if the developer went out after a patio designation for zoning rather than the PUD, there is that potential that they can have discretionary bonus density put in place, that the city council would have to determine that. But if they put those homes in and they were in that moderate income housing level, which apparently, I mean, all of us want, you know, for our kids or for our older people or whoever, that would tick that box for the city. It would provide housing for our senior citizens where they could stay in Hooper. It would be higher density for the developer. I just feel like that would be more of a win situation.
And it's not just for people that live in Hooper. I mean, it could be a place that people in the whole county or northern Utah come to retire if we make that what Hooper's about.
But isn't that the job of the city council? If we approve a rezone, then I think it's up to the city council to get with the developer and say, okay, you've been rezoned for C2 and some mixed use. Let's sit down and come to an agreement on what that mixed use looks like and what we as a city want to see. And then, I mean, just because we vote for a rezone, maybe Terra Strata comes back, the city council puts so many restrictions on the low density rezone, but this isn't gonna work, or is there a give here, or is there a take there? I think our deal we have to look at tonight is, are we willing to approve a rezone request and move it up to the city council to say, hey, as a planning commission, we think this could work with some different ideas and different concepts maybe that Terra Strata hasn't looked at, but maybe we as a city council have looked at. But our purpose here, in my opinion tonight, is are we going to let them rezone it to C2 and mixed use, and then the city council takes it from there and says, hey, this is what, if we're doing this, this is what how we want it done. That's
Well, I think we are the planning commission, emphasis on planning, and I don't think there's anything wrong with adding additional thoughts, constraints into our recommendation. Just saying, yep, approved, doesn't give the whole picture on the point of us being on the planning commission and the reason for us all to be here to, put our minds together and come up with things and our thoughts and the feedback we've got from all the citizens on what is good for Hooper. So I think boiling it down to just a yes or no isn't really beneficial, even to the city council, because they benefit from the additional information we give or additional recommendations.
no, and Brandon made that comment. He said you can put that in your recommendation, that you look at this, you look at that, so that we give them the ideas, I guess, the planning ideas, if we go.
Sorry.
Commissioner Wilson, did you want to answer staff's question on the 55 and older?
Might be on the spot. I don't know if I have the real hard one way or another on it yet. I'd almost like to see where things come back at. It's hard to make any kind of opinion with generic information. So I guess I don't have an opinion yet to answer your question. Sorry.
Thanks. I think also with that, conditions is we can say we don't want a CRA and all this stuff, but we have to also acknowledge that change is coming. And if we don't take the opportunity to do some of these developments right now, because maybe there has been or there hasn't been, but there hasn't been one previous to the last meetings that I watched the last 4 years that have come that would give the city this type of opportunity to generate revenue. Not saying that they're not coming, but they just haven't yet approached us, and I think you have to balance both of those recommendations when you're thinking of saying, well, I don't want to do this, I recommend not that. Like, you have to weigh the impact of both of those comments as you make that recommendation.
I think it's important that we balance out, when we're making a decision, that we're not making it out of fear, that we're trying to focus as much as we can on the data. And I realize there's a lot of talk that Hooper's in trouble. And, I know we've had talk about garbage and sewer increasing. Those are pass-through fees that are coming from the entities that charge those fees. In addition, I know we have a sewer system that needs to be kept up, and it's unique, and there's definitely things that need to be addressed with that. The city implemented a municipal energy tax that was supposed to generate $480,000 a year. I'd like to know where that's going. I haven't noticed in the budget meeting where they've talked about exactly where that has gone to. I think that $480,000, that's significantly more than what this is going to generate, and at no risk to the city. But I'm concerned about where that money is going to, and it's not our place, it's the city council's place to find that out. But I think if we're going to make this decision based out of the fear that Hooper's going to be in trouble if we don't do it, then we need to make sure that we have an understanding of exactly what's going on with our budget. And I know, me personally, I've gone to Transparent Utah and compared some of those numbers with numbers in our budget that have been presented in the meetings, and they don't match, so I'm confused over that. It may just be because I don't understand, I don't have a full understanding, but I don't want to make a decision based out of just the fear. I think we shouldn't jump into something because this could end up being worse, possibly. I mean, I read the numbers, we're in the negative the first few years. That money, that big chunk of money is not going to be generated for some time, and it could be less if we do that CRA. That's why I feel like we shouldn't commit to doing that. Our recommendation.
I agree 100%. I don't think we make judgments out of fear. I was just basing my information off the data that Jared has sent me, that there's a never-ending list of improvements that could be made in the water infrastructure and the storm water. And the fact of the matter is Hooper City became a city 20 years ago, and those subdivisions that were city infrastructure is now 20 years old. If we don't do something to maintain that infrastructure, that list is never going to go away. So I think that's just a reality of saying we have a lot of expenses that aren't, you listen to the budget meeting and it's like, Jared had a list of things and pick your top ones that might fail tomorrow type of thing. So it's not a fear thing, that's just the reality and the data of it. So I'm not saying that out of fear, saying, hey, we're going to go bankrupt if we don't give the city council all the leeway they need to do this. I'm just saying we have to balance, like you said, balance those decisions of this is a real need. We want to grow responsibly. We want to keep Hooper rural. I don't think that happens with West Davis corridor coming through here. I mean, just look at it anywhere, find a spot along the freeway that's in anywhere, a city that doesn't have commercial all along that freeway. And I'm just saying that we have a chance to plan and choose what we want to come here. I'm just saying, based off the data, and you look at other cities and what has been done, that's the reality of it. I want Hooper to stay rural as it can be, but growth's coming, and the only place left to grow is west and north.
So would you agree, though, that the reason why our costs and the issues that we're having are where they're at right now is because of growth? I mean, the more we build, the more it costs. We have to maintain it, we have to find some way to feed this animal. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. And 14,000 is the number they're anticipating. I'm not saying not to plan for it.
What do you do for those people that want to develop their property rights? Because we can't stand and like I'm small government. Like people's property rights are important, and so if we just say no growth because Hooper City can't afford it, that's not a solution either.
I agree. I'm not for no growth, but I'm for responsible growth. And Hooper is unique. Our infrastructure, our sewer, we are not like other cities. And I think we have to be smart. We have to take that into consideration. When you are a part of a community, you're not out in the boonies somewhere. You're part of a community. You have responsibility. Sometimes you can't just do whatever you want with your property. There has to be some sort of guidelines put in place. And I am for small government too, very much so. But I feel like you have to be responsible when you're growing. You have to take those things into consideration and not put yourself into a place where you're in trouble because you've allowed the city to grow faster than what it's capable of growing.
So did the fiscal impact study come back and say that it was a net negative or was it a net positive? Based off the study.
I talked about what the numbers are and how those could change depending on
Right,
if
they
you do
could
the
change,
CRA.
but I could say, yeah, it's gonna be more. But based off the study that they gave it, this fiscal impact study said it would have been a net benefit to the city. That's the data that I can go off of.
But you saw in there that that's considering Beaver County School District, the fire district, all those places.
100%, and that's what the city council and the people that elected those officials can go in those, and that's their job to go and say, this is the development agreement that we want to put in place. All we can look at the numbers and say, that looks beneficial. I look at Smith's. They're smart people. They don't want to build stores where they're going to lose money. Do they know what's going to happen in the economy? No. But I don't think they're going to set up to fail. And I don't want to set Hooper up to fail either. I don't want to handicap the city council saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. I would rather say, explore this, explore that, and explore this avenue and find the best possible solution, if you find a solution.
And again, it's just a recommendation from us. We can't handicap the city council because we don't tell them what to do. So I think we're all in agreement, this is gonna be a recommendation, and that we can put recommendations as part of that recommendation. I think that's an okay thing to do. And the city council's gonna take it and they're gonna do what they feel is best. But as the planning commission, I agree with Sheldon, it's our job to try to plan down the road, and I think that includes having eyes wide open and looking at all aspects of this.
Well, you gotta remember, Hooper it's not a destination city, right? Nobody comes west to party and have a good time. We're more of a, I guess with the highway coming in, we're gonna be more of a pass-through almost, and we've got it on the east side of our city that borders Roy. So we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity to gain a little money. I mean, because let's be honest, if you put this in the middle of the city down 59 and 59, it's probably a no-go because nobody's going to drive that distance to take care of or to consume commercial goods, if you will. But if we're on the edge, I think we have a shot to make some money for the city.
Any other discussion from the commission?
Can I ask Brandon a question? We discussed it a little bit in the work meeting, but as far as this was presented to the commission as a request to rezone, and we need it to be a request to amend the general plan, because we would have to amend the general plan in order to do this. If we make a motion and we send it to the city council, can that be part of the motion, or do they need to fill out the application to amend the general plan first and come into us and then move it?
Yeah, good question. And so I think that was answered by that ordinance that Malcolm pulled up earlier in the work meeting, and where it says, you know, if a rezone application either potentially or does do something that would be beyond what is currently in the general plan, then a recommendation can be made by the planning commission for the city council to look into that and to make that amendment. And so you don't have to, I think that this is a good example of why that's in there, because you can take care of it more efficiently versus saying, okay, hey, you gotta go back and fill out another application just to come back here for the same discussion. So it allows you, by ordinance, with the rezone application, to say, okay, if we recommend approval of the rezone, be cognizant of the fact that it may necessitate the reopening of the general plan. Take a look at that. If it does, they can take care of that.
Okay.
So I think that's just a long answer to that question is yes, you can do it based on this agenda item, and you would not need to have them come back just to fill out another application. If the city council, just take one step further, if the city council determined it would require the opening of the general plan, then we would follow all those processes that are set forth in our ordinances, and it may very well come back again for that. But just, you don't have to make somebody jump through all those hoops just to make that determination. So.
Was there any specific verbiage we need to say? And
I think.
or is that ordinance just kind of?
Yeah, you could say something like that. You know, if we recommend you take a look to make sure whether you feel like it necessitates the general plan being open, and if it does, move ahead that way. So something like that. I mean, the ordinance is covered. I don't think you have to be too worried about that. I mean, the ordinance is already there. I mean, and it covers you. So, because the bottom line is, if there are a few tools the city council could utilize, whether they utilize a development agreement to cover the issues, whether they want to do a general plan. I mean, they can make that decision, and whatever they decide, the city can do it. So, just my outside observation, I think everybody's basically saying the exact same thing. It's just, you know, we want the city council to be aware of the things that we've talked about is essentially what I'm hearing. So I think whatever motion you make, you just, you know, maybe you ask them to listen to the meeting or Maybe, I don't know. So I don't know how you put all that into a motion, but make them listen to the meeting, I don't know, something like that.
Any other comment or are we ready to? I'll entertain a motion for a rezone request for Terrace Strata LLC located at approximately 5500 South, 4700 West. The request is for rezoning of the property of the low-density residential to commercial C2 and residential mixed-use plan unit residential.
Okay, I will make a motion that we recommend approval of, sorry, what you just said, thank you. I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the, I'm looking at Bryce Clark, sorry, rezone request for Terra Strata LLC located approximately at 5500 South, 4700 West, with the recommendation that the city does not participate in a CRA, that the anchor store is completed first before the residential units, that the developer looks into both the PUD and the patio designation in our zoning, and that they consider doing a patio zoning with a 55 plus community for the entire area as a recommendation, and that they can look at increasing the density if they help fulfill that moderate income housing niche. Also that the rezone request is in compliance with all city ordinances, including if there's a necessity to apply, for the developer to apply to amend the general plan.
We have a motion by Commissioner Prince.
I'll second.
We have a second for Commissioner Prince's motion from Sheldon Greener. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the citizen comment portion of this meeting. Just as way of information, you'll be allotted 3 minutes. You do not need to state your address when you come up to the podium. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes to make comments on anything that wasn't already discussed on the agenda. And so at this time, we'll open the meeting for the citizen comment. No citizen comment. We'll now close the citizen comment portion of the meeting and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Greener and a second by Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.